And that's it. I'm going to finish up as I always finish up. You, ladies and gentlemen, have been a wonderfully attentive audience, and this has been the Ruby Sessions. The bar serves till 2:30 downstairs, so we'll see you for your drink there. But for the moment, we're going to leave you in the extremely capable hands of an act who has played with us here numerous times before. It's always great to have him back. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Good night. This is Niall Thomas. Good night. Yes, certainly. The Ruby Sessions we're actually in our 15th year now. So it started, the official date we started on was April 13th, 1999. And it's been running every Tuesday since upstairs in Doyle's, a kind of an intimate little bar there. And we've been there ever since the start. I suppose the whole ethos behind the Ruby Sessions has stayed the same over the 15 years, even though there's been massive changes in both the Irish and international music scene. But I suppose the basic ethos was right at the start and is still relevant today. I suppose when we hit our 10-year anniversary back in 2009, we did, myself and Niall Muckian, who run the night, we did sit down and consider, was it still relevant and should we go on? But we felt it was, and we felt it definitely had a place in the Irish and European music industry.
Nobody knows why you did what you did. Nobody speaks of it and nothing's ever said if it's any use. We're thinking of you now.
There was all these singer-songwriter nights out there, and they definitely still have a place and are an integral part of any city's music scene. They were there, and then there always seemed to me and Niall that there was a big jump between there and going on and doing your own show, be it in a 450 capacity Whelan's or on and up to the Vickers or Olympias or onto the O2. So we kind of wanted to slot in between there and give acts who already had a little bit of a following but weren't necessarily ready to go out and have their own pulling power.
Nobody's sure and everybody's scared. Nobody's certain yet everybody cares if it's any use. We're thinking of you now.
The music industry over the last certainly 10, 11, 12 years has changed so much, and there's been kind of 2, 3, 4 milestones along the way that have changed the way artists approach gigging or approach their career, their job. Be it, back in 2001 when Damien Rice's O album came out, that was, we were only 2, 3 years into the Rubies, and we saw how much that changed how people approached the recording process, and people realised they could do it themselves. That was a big deal. Then obviously with the Facebooks and them coming along and people being able to self-promote, we saw a shift then from people in their bedroom with guitars coming along, and it was all singer-songwriters. Then it became more band orientated, and now with record stores and shops being kind of on the way out, all these funded campaigns and gig starters and all, people realise that they just need to get out and gig, and that's the only way to kind of make a mark or get noticed in what's this overpopulated industry that we're all in. So the Rubies and nights like it and gigs are more important now than they ever were.
I think the only thing I have really to compare it to is the London music scene, because I'm sort of over there most of the time. And I think the sense of, it's a little bit corny, but the sense of community here with it is not like anything I've experienced in the UK. The kind of thing where I was lucky enough to be asked to support this guy called John Newman a few months ago, and I was asked by the rep at MCD DMing me on Twitter. So this is super casual thing, and I've been asked to do support slots via text or email. It's very friends help friends out. It's not as political or structured or formal as it is in the UK.
I don't know if radio has changed in terms of being an important place for people to find new Irish bands. I think people find new Irish bands the same way they always did, which is that they stumble on them doing supports in gigs, they see stuff about them online, their mates tell them about them, they come across, you know, an album track or an album that they quite like, and they build their audiences, I suppose, in a radically different way than major international artists do in Ireland. You know, your major international artist, Katy Perry, puts out a single, everybody hears it the following day, it's oh. But for Irish acts and Irish bands, I think that crucial element that's always been part of what they do, which is building a live following first, and then hopefully, you know, making sales and making gig sales on the back of that as well.
It's highly competitive, because it's so small, and it's so which I do think is a really good thing. There's a lot of people say, "Oh, Dublin is too small. I'm going to move to London," and they just get lost. I think if you know, talent and hard work will shine through, especially in this, you know, small kind of boiling pot that we all live in.
Irish people are incredibly hard to get out for gigs. It's not a small gig going culture. So I'm thinking the sort of venues that I'm lucky enough to be playing at the moment are all sort of under 500 capacity. There's a practical problem in the sense that there's not enough venues of that size in Dublin. You're going to end up playing the same ones again, which is a bit oppressive, and you feel like you're not really getting anywhere, and that's a problem. But if you were to play under 500 capacity venues in London, you could play a different venue every night for 2 years and never run out.
There's a lot more demand for the 300, 400, 500 capacity venues than the 15 to 1,000 seater. And recently, Dublin, you know, has gotten two with the Bord Gáis Energy and Convention Centre to bridge that gap between the Vicar Street and the Olympia and the O2. So I think venues they're doing anything they can to get people in.
The way to get Irish people out on a big scale is to, if you can manage it, easier said than done, is to do well internationally. So break out early enough, try and, you know, and if you gain any sort of traction in the States or in Europe and the UK, and then you come back to Ireland and suddenly it's like this homecoming thing. Suddenly everyone's like, oh, you know, those lads that like live down the road from me, and oh yeah, my friend knows them. And then suddenly everybody gets involved. But if you grow it all within Ireland, I feel like it can hit a bit of a ceiling, or that people just don't find it as exciting enough to get them out. I think Irish people in terms of gigs need to be put under some kind of pressure, or they need to like sort of feed into a sort of hype or a story a little bit more.
Radio audience figures haven't changed dramatically. There's still somewhere between 85, 86, 87% of Irish people listen to the radio every week. So radio hasn't died off, but as to what its influence is on people in terms of their music taste, I don't know, particularly since the advent of the net, and particularly now when so many people get so much of their music either through friends, through Facebook, through stumbling across stuff on YouTube, through Spotify. I think the role has altered radically over the last few years.
The national stations, I mean, look, they have to work within the parameters they're given, and yes, I'd be a fool if I didn't say that. Of course they could play more Irish music. I do understand that their hands are tied a little bit, but definitely they should be playing more Irish music.
When I look at things like Radio 1 over in the UK, and they make this huge effort, this huge like BBC introducing programme that they have, and there's just no real equivalent of that. And I know there are like a few radio stations, they have this like, you know, introducing Irish music, and they put it at like 1 a.m. on a Sunday night, this kind of thing. It's like, it's there so they can say that they do it, but I don't really think they do enough.
Summarise the Dublin music scene in 3 words.
I'd say it's casual, as in it's not super formal and political.
Okay, healthy, thriving and vibrant.
It's friendly, so it's very like community driven and inclusive.
Vibrant, promising, thriving.
Drunk. I think it's very like drink driven, and I think gigs, from what I've seen in church gigs that I've been in contrast with gigs in places like Whelan's, is like it's very, you know, tied in with drinking culture in a good way, with a crack.
If people go to gigs, then it can only benefit, and people then will continue making great music. I mean, Irish bands are all over the world making huge indents into the global scene. If you look at the music industry, between the States, the UK and Germany, they're the three biggest, but they get their grounding and their basic training here. And that's only because people do go to the Ruby sessions on a Tuesday night, or the Song Cycle and Whelan's on a Monday night, or they go out to these gigs which are now affordable, and 400,000 people are going to see Garth Brooks.